Coming up on your favorite podcast, week 2 of the NFL season wrapped up in the books. Well, actually, one's going on right now. It's Falcons and Eagles. I'm sure Zach and Ryan will keep us updated for that during the podcast. But for the rest of the week, it's in the books. Got a lot to talk about. 10 underdogs won in week 2. I don't know what to make of it so far. It seems to be all over the place. And every year that we do this, we say the same things. Oh, man, the league's got so much parity. It's this, that, the other thing. It does feel that way this year. There's a lot of bad quarterbacks in the league, too. I think we have to admit to that. We got to come to terms with the fact that there's a lot of bad players. We're going to talk about that. We got our first quarterback benching of the year. We've got a pretty substantial injury we have to talk about. We have a number of big upsets. We've got some 0-2 teams that we didn't expect to be 0-2. We got some 2-0 teams we didn't expect to be 2-0. All of that leads to what should be a very entertaining pod. Zach, Ryan, next week 2 recap pod coming up. Hey, it's the Tim Anderson Podcast. I'm Tim. That's my buddy Ryan over there, rocking the sleeveless hoodie, but it's an Anoka Speech hoodie. Let's go. 1 month from the meeting. Bring it on, everybody. It's good having you, Rhino.
We're all excited.
We certainly are. And on the other side, of course, the coach, the coordinator, the owner, the everything, Zach Nienaber, the father of 4, including a group that'll flood a bathroom if you give him an opportunity. Zach Nienaber joins the pod. Zach, how are you?
I am doing well, Tim. How are you?
Oh, good to have you guys. Oh, man. Again, we only get to meet once a week for this podcast, but anytime we get to, it's exciting. Gets the blood flowing, gets me happy about life. It's exciting.
That's high praise.
It is high praise. Yeah, it doesn't get any higher than that. So, big pod tonight. A lot of stuff going on. The agenda is robust. I sent that to both of you an hour and a half ago or so, because I think we had it finally settled. Lot to talk about. Where do we begin?
I took copious notes today while at work.
Yep.
And then left them on my desk.
Ah.
So I still think I can remember most of it, but
fantastic. Let's open up with this. I said to first your most surprising outcome / story of yesterday's action or this week's action. Zach, what is the most surprising outcome?
I think the most surprising is the Saints boat racing the Cowboys after the Cowboys looked good in week 1. And we weren't quite so sure that the Saints were real or not because of who they played. And then they came out and just dominated once again.
Yeah, and I still don't know if the Saints are that, but they certainly are a hell of a lot more believable today than they were a week ago. That was very impressive. And I'm just thrilled that I dodged Alvin Kamara on my bench, on the bench of fantasy. I didn't have to deal with him. Thank you, Jesse. Thank you. That was big. Rhino, what was your big surprise?
I mean, the Cowboys Saints game is obviously going to be number 1, I think, on everybody's list. But I was.
Is your mic dialed in, by the way? Is your mic dialed in? I feel like I'm getting your. It just feels a little hollow to me. Just feels a little hollow.
My mic, I think, is good.
Okay, well, keep talking. I don't give a shit. It sounds good to me. I'll take it. I just said it just sounded a little different than normal.
Yeah, it sounds like you're talking from further away.
Yeah, like it's your computer mic is picking you up and not your snowball.
Not my snowball. Well, give me just 1 second. I can fix that.
Well, I'll vamp. I'll talk with Zach while you're working on that. On-air production meeting. We like to do those things from time to time here at the podcast. Are you saying you're in bad shape? God damn it. All right, we'll start again. Sorry about that. We had a slight little technical glitch, but we're back. Rhino's got his mic straightened out. Rhino, you're back.
I'm sorry, everybody.
Oh, see, now you sound great. You sound great. Way better. Good job.
It was picking up my webcam mic and not my big mic.
You see, sometimes we have to do these on-air production meetings to make everything click the way we want to. So I tip my cap to you. That's good, Rhino. Good job by you.
Thanks.
I agree. Cowboys Saints was a huge surprise. I would argue my biggest surprise was Ravens to a certain extent, because I just felt like there's no way the Ravens go 0-2. There's no way the Raiders are going to go cross country and beat the Ravens on the road after they just got handled by the Chargers the week prior. There's no way. And even during the game, I'm like, Ravens are ahead the whole time. They're winning the entire time. And you're just waiting for the one drive for Lamar Jackson to be Lamar Jackson. And you're just like, okay, Lamar, need a touchdown. Here we go. go get it, go end the game. And it never happened. And credit Gardner Minshew.
It felt like Devontae Adams really took over that game too in the second half.
Yeah, what did he have? Like 15 targets? I mean, they were throwing to him and Bowers. It felt like every time down the field. Bowers looks like he's going to be really good. Like, as tight ends go, he could be really, really good. Ryan's more my college football expert, but doesn't Bowers from Las Vegas look really good? Like, he could be a very good tight end in this league.
I mean, he was a very good tight end at Georgia. He kind of fits that mold that everybody wants Kyle Pitts to fit into.
Yeah, he sucks.
Well, I don't think Kyle Pitts sucks. I think there's a disconnect in how the offensive staff that was in Atlanta wanted to use him. And I think you've seen a little bit of stunted growth, but the physicality is still there. The tools are still there. And now you've got, unfortunately, a quarterback who isn't playing very well, despite the fact that I think, he's open a little bit more. They're trying to get him out in space a little bit more. Same thing with Drake London. It might not translate to fantasy numbers right away, but these are very talented players that we just kind of need to see it gel a little bit. And this is where I think week one, really at every level of football, I think you can kind of see it, the rust getting kicked off a little bit. And now we're into week two, and we're starting to see teams that have kicked the rust off more effectively than others. Like, I would say that's probably New Orleans is a team that has just hit the ground running. Minnesota, a team that just kind of hit the ground running. We'll see if it's sustainable, and the rest of the league will catch up. But for right now, you kind of see who wins the offseason in the first couple of weeks.
I had a conversation with a guy at work today who's a big Bears fan, and he made a point that's been brought up many times on the podcast before, but he feels like they should have played Caleb Williams way more in the preseason.
I agree. He needed to play, and the offensive line needed to gel with him. Like, that needs to be like a singular unit. It's weird to me that he didn't get to play more. Like, they were treating him like he was Aaron Rodgers. It's like, that guy needs to play a lot more.
Well, and you saw him miss some throws last night. Like, I mean, he tried to go back shoulder on stuff, and it wasn't close. Like, he seems to not quite have the touch on it right now, or he doesn't know how far to throw the ball on some of these.
The national media made every excuse in the world for Caleb Williams this morning. Like, cowards.
Imagine how they'll treat him when he finally throws a touchdown.
Yeah, it's like, the offensive line's terrible. I mean, how is he needs a cape back, the superhero cape back there. And I'm like, guys, let's try to get a grip.
I said it last night, right? He went from stepping into the greatest situation ever for a first round pick to he needs more help pretty damn quickly.
Interesting.
There's a reason the Bears were picking as high as they were, right? I know that wasn't their pick, but they were still a top 10 pick. They're just not a good football team.
And Eberflus might not be a good coach.
And Justin Fields is 2-0.
Justin Fields is 2-0.
Now, in fairness, he has not played great.
He hasn't beat them, though. He hasn't beat them in 2 weeks. Right. I'll say that.
Exactly. And they're playing a similar style that the Bears do. They've got a good defense and, right, making stuff happen. But, yeah, I mean, I saw some of the statistics today, like, quarterbacks that have more touchdown passes than Caleb Williams, and it was quite the list. Plus, then another one, too, is like Malik Willis with more than Bo Nix, Caleb Williams, and Jaden Daniels combined.
Boy, how bad has Bo Nix been? You want to talk about things that are not surprising.
I'm not ready to say that's all his fault. Yeah, because I don't think Sean Payton's doing a very good job here. Like, the mismanagement of the clock in the fourth quarter yesterday, like, I don't understand what he was doing. And even the announcers kind of called him out, like, what are we doing? Like, kicking a field goal, you're going to get the ball back with 8 seconds and no timeouts. And you got to go to length of the field. Like, what are we doing?
I mean, I don't want to toot my own horn here, but I will say I kind of called the Caleb Williams, Bo Nix stuff on draft night.
Is anybody good in this draft, Ryan? Like, honestly, anybody good? I mean, Jaden Daniels is kind of fun, but I've yet to see him really.
Jaden Daniels is going to be good.
You think so?
Yeah, he's playing a little too fast right now, which is a good problem to have, right? And I think that'll get better with time. Obviously, we haven't seen regular season action from JJ McCarthy yet. And I think Michael Penix will be fine when he eventually steps into the Falcons offense.
Ryan, true, false. you have ordered a Sam Darnold jersey, and you are ready to trade J.J. McCarthy right now and give Sam Darnold $150 million guaranteed.
Fall.
On both counts or just
on
one?
both counts. On both counts. Here's my comparison.
Is a Darnold jersey at least in the cart on NFLshop.com? Is it at least in the cart?
I am retired from buying jerseys. I will be purchasing no more jerseys.
What about for
your son? Is there a Darnold jersey in the cart?
If he's getting anything, he's getting a JJ McCarthy jersey. Either McCarthy or Jefferson. Like those are the two. I'm a big believer in McCarthy. I like him a lot. I hated him at Michigan, which means that I knew I'd like him when my team drafted him.
I'm starting to think this class is not good. I mean, we haven't seen Drake May yet, but I'm convinced this class.
I'm not convinced they're not good. I think that there's plenty of talent in this draft. I think that
got way overhyped. There's way oversold.
I think it got overhyped at the top. I don't think Caleb Williams is very good. I wasn't high on Caleb Williams when he was in college. I felt like it was a lot of overselling what he can do.
I will say this podcast called it. We were the only ones with guts enough to say that when he was at USC on this podcast.
Right. And I sent you all the tweet last night, right, that I made on, I think that was like a week before the draft, that the reason that Caleb Williams is going to bust isn't because he paints his nails or wears lip gloss. It's because he's playing in Chicago and he can't throw from the pocket. He's garbage, right? Against an NFL defense, when he's facing pressure, he just doesn't have it. And you can tell when a guy has it, right? Even if it's not coming together right away, like you can tell when a guy has
Collinsworth needed a towel off in the first quarter last night. Oh, duh, Mike. That throw. Are you kidding me? It's like, Jesus.
Could you try a little harder to make this kid a new face of the league? Like, could you try a little harder to sell this? Because I don't get the feeling they're trying hard.
I need a Chris Collinsworth cam, Zach, where it's just like the old Vince McMahon meme of his face just kind of losing his mind in the middle. I just need to see that in the middle of a play when Collinsworth is calling the action.
Ryan, just a pro tip on jersey buying. So I have gone on eBay and bought all kinds of Packer jerseys that are in youth sizes of like former guys, right? Guys who are not there anymore. So you get them for like $5. And my kids have a plethora now of jerseys to wear as they grow up. And it's guys like Donald Driver, Kamir Gabaja-Biamila, AJ Hawk. And it's perfect.
Anytime someone asks me for my obscure football player name, I always go Kabir Baja-Biamila.
Yeah,
that is the name that I always pull. Either him or like Lofa Tatupu.
Lofa Tatupu is a good one. I thought you'd have a Dorsey Levens for sure, or a Mark Shimura. I thought you'd have one of those guys.
I think there is a Chimura jersey upstairs in the closet.
We were in our defensive meeting today watching film, and we're watching the team that we're playing this week. And one of our kids goes, talking about their running back, goes, "Is that Rex Burkhead out there?" I'm like, "What a pull!
It's a great
what a pull, man!" the Rex Burkhead pull. I respect it.
Yeah, so I found a seller who is in Wisconsin, and they sell all they do is just probably go to the Goodwill and buy every jersey there and then repost them for sale. But I've bought a handful of things, and they don't have just Packer jerseys, but they have a lot of them. But it's nice. I can go on every so often and just like, pick up 3 jerseys, ship them all together. I think I got my daughter a couple of NDSU jerseys from there, so she had things to wear to the game. So it's been an expert move.
Tip my cap to you, man. That's really
I did keep 1 jersey to give him when he gets older. 2, actually. I have 2 jerseys to give him when he gets older.
I'm going to take a guess at one's Peyton Manning.
That is correct. I have a home Indianapolis Colts Peyton Manning jersey. And I also have a home 1999 Randy Moss.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Brett Favre 2009 Vikings.
I did not get a Brett Favre jersey. I did have a 2010 Adrian Peterson.
Yeah,
I didn't keep that one.
That's a tough one. You might be able to sell that and give him the profits, because word is he needs a little money. He needs a couple bucks. He's a little, it's a tough look for Adrian right now. Quarterback news. There's stuff going on, guys. Big news that came out a couple hours ago. And not that I'm surprised. I may be surprised by the timing, but not surprised by the move, Zach. Bryce Young benched for Andy Dalton. 2 questions for you. Surprised, and is this it for Bryce Young, or is he going to be back on the field? This is a temporary thing. Have they given up on him by doing this? Is he still going to have a chance to be the guy in Carolina?
So honestly, this morning I couldn't remember who Andy Dalton was on, what team he was on. But I was kind of like, this feels like the time of the year when you start hearing about Andy Dalton again. And then this afternoon, it's like Andy Dalton to start for Panthers. And I'm like, yep, there it is.
By God, that's Andy Dalton's music.
I think that it does surprise me a little bit that they're just going to cut bait so early. I think he'll come back and be the starter at the end of the year. I think they might go Dalton for 4 or 5 games here and then go back. Because the reality is, you know what you have from Dalton. And
you know they stink, too. Like, it's not like Dalton's going to come in and they're going to win 5 games.
Right.
Like, that's not happening.
And so if they're, even if he wins a game or what, they're 1-6 or whatever, there's no reason not to go back. I think your hope here is that you can kind of hit reset, let him sit and watch a little bit and try to clear his mind and start over.
He's literally not giving them a chance. Ryan, I get it. They're not super talented, but he's throwing for like 45 yards a half.
This goes back to, the other thing I've talked about with quarterbacks is that when you should get everything else in place and then add the quarterback.
Yes.
When you add the quarterback first, it's really hard because sometimes, first of all, the quarterback is good enough to win 5 or 6 games, so it's killing your draft position. But then also, in their case, they spent so much to get the quarterback that they can't put anything else around him. Or if they already had the things around him and then moved up to take a quarterback, they might be in a better spot.
It's just...
I think the other...
Go ahead, Ryan.
I was just going to say, I think the other thing that this really affects is it makes it hard to evaluate your quarterback. Beyond making it hard for him, you don't really know if you've got a guy or not if you don't have a team around him at all. So you really put yourself behind the 8 ball in a couple of different ways as far as what do we have now and do we have anything for the future? Those are all things that you have to be able to answer as a coaching staff. And if you don't have a system around your quarterback where you can answer that question, you put yourself behind the 8 ball.
Well, it's kind of like David Carr, right?
It's a lot like David Carr.
The Texans had nothing around him, loaded up, David Carr into a team of nothingness, and he got sacked 56 times or whatever it was that year and never recovered.
That's right. Yeah. I think I was surprised at just how small, like everybody, and I'm not totally mad at the Panthers on this too, because everybody said Bryce Young is like a consensus number 1. Some said Stroud, but a lot of people said Young. I don't know how you can look at these two side by side and say that, because Kyler Murray's small, Bryce Young is small. And on top of that, he's not super fast. So it's not like Kyler, where Kyler makes plays with his legs. And then he doesn't have a big arm. Kyler made some big throws even yesterday that you're like, well, Kyler's got an arm. He can get it out there. I don't see a big arm from Bryce Young. I don't see elusiveness. I don't see the great decision-making that they said that he had. I just don't see it. Like, there's nothing there that I see. And I keep waiting for flashes. I always talk about with rookies, all I want to do is see flashes. I just want to see signs. Something that tells me you're good.
The problem is, compounding this issue is if they had taken Stroud, they still probably lost the trade.
Yeah.
With just how much they gave up, right? So that's pretty, even if they had made the perfect pick or the best pick possible in that quarterback draft, they still would have been wrong.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, I really, I just continue to wonder what David Tepper is doing. I continue to wonder what the Panthers are doing, but it's clear to me that, and the problem is you're watching Stroud take this Texans team and completely turned around the whole fortune of that place. And they've made other picks too. Trust me, they nailed last year's draft. It was just a tour de force from the Texans last year in the draft, but they're looking at that, and if you're a Panthers fan, you just got to keep shaking your head and going like, man, what the hell?
But that's
like,
the thing.
What were we doing here?
I think what the Panthers need to realize, and their ownership needs to realize, is this is not a 1-year process to fix things.
Right.
That's not how it happens in the NFL, especially when you're this bad.
The good news is they've got Young in the rookie contract for 2 more years. So you could do a Zach Wilson thing where you kind of hang on to him, you sit him, you see if you can get some momentum somewhere else, you keep him in the hope that maybe he turns something around. And while you do that, maybe you can build up and you can stay cheap at the quarterback position while you build these other positions. That's the only thing you can really think of. But for Bryce Young, for him to say, though, that he was blindsided by this today, I mean, come on, man. You can't be blindsided. You're throwing for less than 150 yards a game. Like, you haven't scored. You're scored. What have they scored? 17 points? I mean, 13
It's something
points?
like that. It's not.
They're not scoring. They're not moving the ball. You have to know that you're going to get sat eventually if you can't move the ball. And it's pretty ugly for him. He sits. Next one, Ryan Tua Tagovailoa. Now, he came out today and said, I have no plans to retire. I have no plans to do any of that. I've also heard some reports. It's not confirmed yet that he might be done for the season. Haven't heard that confirmed yet. So I'm not going to say that, but he's clearly going to sit for a while. I guess, again, just like I threw to Zach, 2 schools of thought here. What do you think of Tua's situation? And what do you think about where the spot the Dolphins are in as a result? And what do they do?
I mean, if you're the Dolphins, you kind of had to expect this a little bit.
We've talked about it on the pod, on the preview pod, that he's 1 hit away from the squash to being, out.
Yeah. I mean, this isn't, I guess if you're going to compare the 2 stories, being shocked by this, if you're the Dolphins, is just like Bryce Young being shocked by the Panthers decision, right? It was predictable. It was foreseeable. It was the fact that he continued to be on the field without a real contingency plan is a problem. And I think that speaks to an organizational desire to win right now and to stand by their guy, which is commendable. But at the same time, you have a duty to your football program to have another guy ready. And if you don't have another guy ready, you're kind of twisting in the wind a little bit. And you have all this talent. What do you do now? Right. And part of me wonders, like, if the Panthers are ready to move on from Bryce Young, I wonder what he looks like in a situation like Miami. If maybe they wanted to trade a lower round pick for him and give him another shot somewhere else that isn't, Carolina, and let Tua move on. I also wonder if Tua's decision isn't because he doesn't want to leave the franchise high and dry. Obviously, he wants to play football, but there's going to be some pull there to stay because there isn't a backup plan. The ships have kind of been burned a little bit. So I'm not 100% sure what the answer is there. But
what did they sign?
They just signed a Pro Bowler.
Who did they sign?
Tyler Huntley.
They signed Huntley today. I didn't know that.
Yeah, they got him off the Ravens practice squad.
I was waiting for them to sign Tannehill again, and how the prodigal son has returned. That's what I was waiting for. That would have been hot. Huntley not in for it, Ryan.
The Pro Bowl's such a joke.
Do you think they called?
You kind of have to, right?
No, you don't have to. He's 100 years old. He's been out for 2 years.
Secret meeting on a boat.
Tom's on the yacht. Did you come alone? I did. Good. Let's sit down. Are you wearing a wire? No, I'm not.
Leo McGarry meeting with Castro in Cuba.
Yeah. Stephen Ross has to show up and open up his jacket and be patted down by Brady's security to make sure he's not wearing a microphone or some kind of recording device.
I mean,
what was that throw from
last time?
What's that?
They ended up in Tampa. That's what they did.
Yeah, that's true. It is what they did.
They met on the yacht and tried to tamper with him. And I mean, you have to call him.
Do you have to call him when he's that old? Like, it's one thing when he's a year out. It's another thing now that he's 2 years out. It's a completely different thing. I love Tom, but he can't be 47.
Who else would you call?
I see. Fuck, I don't know. There's not a lot out there. I agree. There's not. So I don't know. I guess Tom. Yeah. Do you call Phil? Well, Phil's 3 or 4 years younger.
Out for multiple years.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know what the right answer is on that. I don't.
Harv?
Just sign Adrian Peterson. He needs the money. Let him play
I was
Wildcat.
going to say he's too busy. Favre's too busy campaigning for Trump.
Could you imagine Favre and McDaniels?
Oh my God. That you want to talk about like oil. It'd be like The Odd Couple. It'd be like, I don't know how that would even possibly work.
And let me tell you, like we've talked about the NFL aging some guys. Mike McDaniels looks rough.
Yeah, he needs a haircut fast. Like somebody's got to pull him aside and be like, "Hey, Mike, seriously, you look like you just got off like a 15-hour flight. Like, can we clean it up a little bit on the sidelines? Let's get some standards back. Let's pick it up a little bit." Says the guy who liked Belichick in his ripped up hoodie all the time. But I mean, I don't know. Let's little decorum is what I'm looking for.
Belichick's a guy that looks weird in a suit. I don't exactly think he's the example.
He's Mr. Personality on TV right now. What are you talking about? I don't want to hear this from him ever again. If he goes to another press conference when he gets a job with the Giants next year, whatever, and goes, "Yeah, we're just on to Cincinnati, on to Tampa." Sorry, you don't get to do that anymore. No, you do not. Not when you've been on TV as loud and as boisterous and as whatever as you've been. You don't get to do that.
No, he's not going to get the Giants job. He's going to end up being the TV while Deion Sanders gets the job in New York.
Ooh, that's interesting.
God.
They're going to draft Shedeur Sanders and then sign his dad.
Good, because I think Shedeur Sanders is not good. I'm sorry. I'm going to stamp it right now. That guy's not an NFL quarterback. Just not. I don't see it. No, I mean, first of all, what a prick. It's so, I'm a Deion guy and I want to root for Colorado. I can't. I have to root for them to lose every game. Have to. Sorry. It's in my DNA now. Screw Colorado. Anyway, I thought about this all weekend, guys, about Tua's like career. I'm sitting there thinking, God, boy, somebody really needs to pull him aside and be like, "Hey, guy, just take the money and run. Get the bag, get out. You're good. Don't worry about this." But then, like, I started talking to other people, and they're like, "That's not your call, Tim. Like, that you don't get to say that. Like, guys can hang around and play. That's his brain, his life, his everything. It's not your responsibility. It's not the NFL's responsibility. It's not the Dolphins' responsibility. It's nobody's responsibility but his." And I'm like, yeah, that's true too. And so, if we talk about autonomy and personal freedom and all of that stuff, I guess if Tua wants to play football, all of us need to stand back and let him play football. Am I right? Ryan, what do you think? Zach, go ahead.
I think I agree with you, Tim, it's not our place to tell someone when they need to be done. Right? I mean, I think back of other things. I mean, you could talk about, right, like Ric Flair in the ring.
Yeah.
Right? Probably needed to be done sooner than he was. But I've had conversations.
Certainly boxers, mixed martial arts fighters, certainly the list is miles long.
I mean, and there we're talking about some bigger issues. But I've talked to my brother about it, and my brother probably ran his arm into the ground at some point because he took the ball every day and pitched. And he has come out. I mean, he's basically said to me, he's like 100% would do it again. And there you're talking about an arm versus head injury and different things. But, he was like, if I did it all over again, I would make the same decision. And he's doing it as, a guy who went and pitched in college and never beyond that. And versus a guy who's playing in the NFL at the highest level. Like, I think those guys are built because they want to do it and they're willing to do it. And they're, they want the ball in their hands and are willing to take chances. And so I think it's hard to tell other people when to be done.
Yeah.
We don't know the extent of things. I mean, we've seen the concussions, we've seen how he's reacted on the field, but we don't know how I mean, we're not interacting with him on a day-to-day basis,
Yeah, it's our unwillingness to watch what looks like a pretty ugly scene on the field. It's us saying we don't want to watch that. That's the reason why we're pouring this out. No other reasons there. Ryan, what do you think?
I personally think that if it were me, I'd retire.
Soft.
But I'm
soft.
What'd you say?
Zach goes with soft.
I mean, it's at some point you have to ask yourself the question: is it worth it to keep going? I understand the drive and the desire and that this is who this guy is. I get all that, but I get that it's not my place either. It's just, man, it's hard to watch as a fan and as a fan of the game. You know, it's hard to watch him continue to do that and continue to put his long-term health at risk for, you know, for what? You know what I mean? And not just to keep playing, but to keep playing the way he's playing. The way he got hurt, the play he got hurt on this week was a routine hit.
Yeah.
And it was he got hit across the side of the head with a player's bicep who just kind of caught him.
Yeah, it wasn't helmet to helmet or anything like that. No.
Hamlin didn't hit him super hard, right? He didn't unload on him. He kind of caught him and just kind of lowered his arms and let Tua just kind of fall into him and just kind of caught him across the side of the head. There was nothing egregious, dirty, or forceful about that hit. I think that to me is the most alarming thing, right? Look, this is football at the highest level. If a guy gets hit across the head and he gets knocked out, that's part of the game, right? Happens once, whatever. You'll adjust your game. You'll try to avoid it next time. But here's a guy who's had multiple severe concussions, national television. He's been on the ground multiple times. We've questioned whether or not he's a guy who should be playing long-term, diving head first into a play.
Yeah, can't happen.
And I appreciate that you want that for your team. I totally do. But you are the $150 million man on this team. You are the quarterback of the Miami Dolphins. QB1. There are 32 people who have the job that you have in the entire world. You're one of them, and you're not protecting yourself, and you're not protecting the investment of the ownership. You're not protecting the future of the team because you want to play hero. And to me, that is the problem. It's his health is a problem. Yes. Personally, I wouldn't take that risk. But if I'm the team, I'm looking at this and thinking, okay, what if it's worse next time?
Yeah.
What if it's not a safety who's just kind of catching the quarterback awkwardly and almost knocking him out? What if it's, you know, a 250-pound linebacker flying at full speed who dives into him as he's sliding, as we've seen happen hundreds of times over the history of the league?
This is
right?
this
relatively routine.
But this is the athlete, right? I mean, it's the old, I think the NASCAR drivers used to say it for years. I mean, guys like Dale Earnhardt used to always say, like, you got to be willing to, when you get in the car, you got to know that's what you're getting in the car for. You're taking risks. Every time you play a sport, you take a risk, and you either got to want to do that or whatever.
Personally, I understand that, right? Personally, I get that for Tua. But if you're the Dolphins,
yeah, Dolphins might need to find a way out of that if they can. If they can. I don't know if they can.
How, I mean, what, because I mean, I get the idea of like they don't want to be culpable, but what is your solution then? If he still wants to play,
some team's going to give him if the Dolphins don't do it, some team will. They'll gamble that he's going to be okay and they'll give him a 1-year deal and see what happens. If
you're the Dolphins and you're in win now mode, there are quarterbacks out there who can run this offense. And there are trades that can be made to at least ensure your other investments in this season.
I think there's 5 good quarterbacks in the league.
Who are you trading?
I'm not saying that you have to trade for a superstar. I'm saying that there has to be a guy out there who can make these short throws that they're trying to make. They're not bombing it down the field. They're running the ball and playing a West Coast system. You need a pop gun arm.
Yeah, your guy, Hot Rod Hundley. They signed Hundley. That's it.
I don't think Hundley's a guy that I would want playing NFL games, but certainly there's another Andy Dalton out there.
Oh, do you really want to watch him play? I mean, if you're
can you take care of the football?
That's true.
Give your defense a break and put it in Tyreek Hill's hands. Can you get it to Devon Achane? Right? Can you get it to Jalen Waddle?
Yeah. 5
to 10 yards and let them break it open.
All right. That's true. So write this down at whatever. I'm not even sure what minute we are in the podcast.
We're at 35 minutes. So we will move to the next category after this. But go ahead.
Well, we're more than 35 because we had the technical difficulty.
That's true. Yes, of course. Yeah. It's yeah.
But Ryan is calling for the Miami Dolphins to trade with the Indianapolis Colts for Joe Flacco. right? I mean, there could be no other.
I can see Ryan just shrugged and said, I would absolutely make a phone call for Joe Flacco.
I mean,
You
otherwise,
need
what?
some kind of insurance policy because Tyler Huntley ain't it.
Jameis Winston in Cleveland.
Cleveland might
Sure.
get Jameis Winston.
Jimmy
That's true.
G's with the Rams.
Jimmy G, but I bet you could call the Rams and get Jimmy. Although Jimmy G might start this weekend because everybody's out for the Rams, so you might as well not play Stafford.
I mean, you could maybe go Jacoby Brissett just because the Patriots would be willing to go to Drake May.
You could call the Pastronaut. You could go get Josh Dobbs.
Mac Jones.
Mac Jones. You could go get Mac Jones. No.
Well, okay.
I mean, go solve the problem for the Steelers and trade for
That's
either
what I was
Russell
gonna
Wilson
say.
or
Go get
Justin
Russ
Fields.
Wilson. Yeah, go get him.
Well, maybe not Russ. Maybe the other way.
You go Fields.
Maybe Fields.
Ooh, I like that.
I mean, if Tomlin doesn't want to commit to Fields long term, I mean,
That might be the real move.
That's pretty juicy. I kind of like.
you could call Carolina and say, "Are you really done with Bryce?
No,
Are
they'll
you done with
nah.
him? Like, do you want him or no?"
No, they'll keep him.
But I'm not saying you pull the trigger. I'm saying you make the call and see if he's available.
True. Yeah, why not?
Cooper Rush.
Cooper Rush. Yeah, Rhino. Cooper Rush.
You know, you could do Cooper Rush. You could go with what's that guy who played for the Giants last year? The Italian dude.
DiNucci. Oh no, not DiNucci. DeVito.
Yeah,
Tommy DeVito.
Well,
Yeah.
the Giants'
From Goodfellas.
backup now is Drew Lock.
Yeah, it's Drew Lock. DeVito's available. He's third string.
Davis
I mean,
Mills.
shoot, you could trade for Daniel Jones.
I'm going to give you guys two choices here because we are running short, so I'm going to move us along. We can either talk about the state of quarterbacks in the league, which we've kind of done here in the last minute, or we can talk about the 0-2 teams most likely to make the playoffs.
0-2 team.
I like that one.
But I'll
Let's
close
do
it out with
0-2. All right.
Mitch Trubisky, Buffalo Bills.
Mitch Trubisky.
Sad Trombonski making a comeback.
Oh, I love it. I'm gonna list you all the 0-2 teams, guys, and I want you to tell me who's got a chance to make the playoffs. In the AFC, we have the Broncos are 0-2.
No.
The Bengals are 0-2.
Yes.
The Ravens are 0-2.
Yes.
The Titans are 0-2.
No.
The Jaguars are 0-2.
No.
The Colts are 0-2.
No.
On the NFC side, the Giants are 0-2. We've already eliminated them.
Yeah. No.
The Rams are 0-2.
They may make an appearance later in this podcast.
It's getting late early in LA, but I won't say no yet.
And the Panthers are obviously 0-2.
Yeah. No.
So out of those teams, you've got three, basically, Zach, is what you've said. Make a case for the Ravens. I kind of agree with you on the Ravens and the Bengals. I don't think you can eliminate them yet, but kind of make a case as to why they're okay and why a team like the Jaguars or the Titans may not be, or the Colts, because people had high hopes for the Colts at the beginning of the year.
Well, I'll say, okay. So I think, first of all, if you look at the AFC North, right? Yes, the Steelers are 2-0, but we question if that is sustainable, right? The style of their wins. And we know that they seem to do this every year.
Yep.
But I don't know that it's right. They are catchable. So I don't
Yes.
think you can eliminate those two teams yet.
Far and away the best defense so far through 2 weeks. But
I do not have the Jaguars on the list. Ryan, do you remember Thanksgiving last year? You know, you sat down, you had a big meal.
He was in a turkey coma. Yep.
Delicious, right?
I'm trying to remember. Yeah, okay. Well, I'm trying to think about what you're getting at here.
But that's the last time Trevor Lawrence won a game that he started. It's Thanksgiving week. So I am.
While Ryan was on his turkey sandwich at 9:30 at night, that was the last time we could celebrate. Trevor Lawrence is a winner.
I would do for a Thanksgiving turkey sandwich right now?
You are a month and a half away, my friend. Hang in there.
Can I just tell you
2
what
months away.
the disgusting things that I would do for one of those right now?
Tim, you are 22 school days away from MEA break.
We sure are.
So
We got a long way to go.
I think, yeah, it's been forever since the Jaguars have won a football game.
I'm starting to think Trevor Lawrence is not good.
Yeah,
I'm concerned.
out on him.
I'm concerned.
I wanted him to be good. I wanted the Jaguars to be competitive.
And Doug Peterson, after the early good start,
every year I draft Travis Etienne, believing that like this is the year, and I thought from the get go, I was like, well, he's got his college quarterback, they're together. No, I'm over it. I'm done. No more Jaguars.
Ryan, did Herb permanently ruin Trevor Lawrence, or was Trevor Lawrence just not that good?
I think we talk a lot about termites in the walls in some of these franchises.
Yes.
I think that if you put Trevor Lawrence in a better situation, he's a better quarterback. I feel similarly about him the way that I did about Justin Fields, that if you put him with a different coach, a different situation, just let him start over. I think it's a better situation.
Hey, Zach, what company do the Cons run better, AEW or the Jacksonville Jaguars? Because both are pretty bad. The viewership for AEW is in the toilet, and then the Jags are awful.
So I've never really watched AEW, but I found it hilarious that their whole concept was like, we're not WWF. We want to give new guys shots. And then it just became.
I was out when I saw footage last week of your guy, Brian Danielson, a.k.a. Daniel Bryan, being submitted with a bag over his head to suffocate him for the pin. I'm like, what on earth are we doing? Like, what's happening here?
Yeah.
Like,
so I looked
it's
back.
It's basically a snuff film now. It's basically what we're watching every week on AEW.
So I saw that Trevor Lawrence stat, and I was like, that can't be right. And I looked back, and I was like, well, the Jaguars won on New Year's Eve last year. But that was C.J. Beathard beating the Panthers. So that tells you how terrible the Panthers are. And it was 26-0 too.
Old C.J. beat hard.
I'm concerned about Trevor Lawrence. Yeah. When I start looking around the league and you start to see these franchise quarterbacks, you're looking around going, there might only be 5 guys in the league that you'd want. Mahomes, obviously, Allen, Lamar.
Well, why do you think teams are starting to move more toward running the ball?
You're right. But you even look at guys like Lamar, great quarterbacks win that game yesterday. And
so Ryan just brought up running the ball. And I know this is something we've talked about in things, but the pendulum has swung now in the NFL back, right? It's always been a back and forth type thing.
Mm-hmm.
And we're not going to go back to the smash mouth football days, right? With
I formation fullbacks.
Right. I mean, you see some of it still with some teams, but what has happened is it's like as spread offenses started to proliferate.
I love it. Great word.
The landscape in the NFL, defenses adjust, right? And defenses go smaller, they go faster, they go more athletic. And so now the pendulum has started to swing back the other way where like teams are never going to go back to just, throwing the ball 3 times a game, but they've found the value in running the ball again. They found the value in tight ends and things, and they're still going to take shots, but they're taking their shots in appropriate times. They're not just going to take right. I mean, remember that game when the Patriots came to Minnesota, or they played, I don't know who was at home, but the Patriots threw the ball basically like 60 times and ran.
Yeah, I remember that game. Brad Childress, Belichick just came in and said, I don't believe they can stop us. We will pass every down.
Right. And that was kind of like the start of like this, you can throw the ball 1 billion times. And now it's coming back the other way. And so teams are starting to run because defenses have adjusted. And so I think if you look back too, like look at the NFL draft this year and look at the off season, like safety became a high priority position because of that.
Interesting thought. Do you think also it might also mean that we have to go back to the time of the 90s when you'd have to give a quarterback 5 years to see if he was any good or not? Like, where you couldn't tell in year 1 or year 2. Like, I think about guys like Rich Gannon, and I think about guys like, Testaverde took a long time. Young took a long time to develop. Favre took a few years to really develop. I mean, guys took time to get really, really good. And we were kind of spoiled in this period with Manning, Brady, Breeze, Romo could throw it. all of Rivers, and we just got this run of quarterbacks that could all throw and be commanding and do all this stuff, that now we're coming back and we're like, yeah, those guys don't exist. Like those guys, you're not getting one of those every year in the draft anymore. They're not there. So we have to go back to the old Rich Gannon system of like, it's going to take 5 years.
I don't think it'll take 5 years just because of the quality of offensive coaching that we have today versus what we had back then. And I think this is more indicative of a trend that I think you would be able to if we actually looked at this. I think you could measure it era by era, that when there's a dichotomy between the college game and the pro game and how they're played, this is what you get, right? When the NFL started moving more towards spread offenses and throwing the ball a lot, right? Like Peyton Manning 04, Brady 07, right? Those sorts of seasons where you had those really good classes of quarterbacks in 2004, right? Like those sort of like, we're going to gun it all over the field sort of teams. That really created this trend that, 15 years down the road, you see the Patrick Mahomeses, you see the guys that grew up just slinging the ball all over the field, and we're at the tail end of that now, right? Where now you've got more of a West Coast system back in play. You've got all of these guys from the Shanahan-McVay wing of offensive theory run the ball first, right? They're running out of 12 personnel. They're trying to control the clock. They're protecting the football. They can sling it all over the field, but the way they're throwing the ball isn't a downfield attack. It's a lateral attack that's really just an extension of the running game. And like you see a lot of the bubble screens, a lot of the RPO stuff, and college kind of catches up to that. And now you're back toward this sort of Alabama single back play action West Coast style offense with a committee of backs and an emphasis on playmaking wide receivers after the catch. And the quarterback just has to be a guy who can make the right decision. So the dichotomy that we're seeing are the guys that are failing right now in the NFL are the guys that are coming from pure spread systems that are throwing the ball 30 to 50 times a game and not really running the football anymore.
I think that's fair. I mean, I can't wait I want to see how this unfolds this year, but like we've only had 300-yard passing games so far through 2 weeks. Like it has not been very many. And Mahomes threw for $151 yesterday. So
there is beauty and art in watching an offensive line just move the defense in a way that they want to.
And it's fun to watch good defense too. Like what the Steelers are doing is impressive. Like I give them that. I mean, may not be pretty, but it's fun to watch good defense. All right. Time for another recurring segment. Time for the apology segment. Is there anything we need to apologize for this week, or are we okay? Ryan, do you need to apologize for anything?
I'd like to apologize to Sam Darnold for ever doubting you.
Oh my God. That's a little premature, isn't it? Come on.
I thought that this game would totally expose him. That is truly one of the best defenses in the NFL. And the Vikings looked really good. Offensively and defensively. I mean, there's hiccups in there, and it's never going to have a perfect game, but goodness gracious. Hope is going to kill me. Eventually, I'm going to break and I'll stop ever paying attention to this football team again. But for right now, I'm going to enjoy this. And thank you to Sam Darnold for setting me up to have my life ruined yet again. I'm sure this will be great.
Oh, I love it.
Zach, first, where do you think they're going to finish, Ryan?
I'm not going to think about that right now. We're on to Houston. We're going to take this one game at a time.
Are you going to predict victory right now? Are you saying we're going to win the division? Will you go on record right now?
I will say that I feel much better about it than I did 3 weeks ago, if only because Chicago appears to be not good. Detroit is regressing a little bit with their discipline and penalties, and Green Bay's quarterback situation. I don't know if that's sustainable.
They did win with a high school offense yesterday, which had to warm Zach's heart. Like honestly, the game got played in 2 hours, 20 minutes.
Their quarterback situation, all they do is find quarterbacks.
I think that if you're asking me, would I rather have Caleb Williams or Malik Willis? I don't know the answer to that question. I'm saying sustainability, right? I don't know
if you don't know the answer to the question, that in itself is a huge indictment to the Bears.
No, I agree. I don't like Caleb Williams. I didn't like him when they drafted him. But to your question about whether or not I think the Vikings will win the division, yeah, I think they can win the division.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Okay. Zach, anything to apologize for?
I apologize for saying Mike Zimmer was a good defensive coach last week. Holy fuck.
Fair.
Players are going to get him fired again.
And he'll go on TV and talk about how, it was all their fault. It's McCarthy. He was terrible. Like, he wouldn't let me do anything as the defensive coach. Blah, 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 blah.
Ooh,
Really, it's the fault of Brian Schottenheimer. I don't know how he still has a job in the NFL.
Oh, it was not good. Not a good day. I got to apologize to Dennis Allen. I keep telling you that I keep telling people he's a bottom third coach in the league, maybe one of the 7 or 8 worst coaches in the league, and he's figuring it out, and he's playing well. Clint Kubiak, who knew? He was in our building, and here they are doing amazing things.
Do you think it's a little personal for Clint Kubiak to take that out on Mike Zimmer a little bit?
I would bet there was a little bit of that in there. I'm sure he didn't mind going, you know what? Let's keep going. This has been fun. Let's keep scoring.
He practiced against him for however many years and was unceremoniously jettisoned.
He is just a prickly bastard, Mike Zimmer. Like, seriously. Like, fucking dude. Let's have a little fun in life. It's okay. Jesus Christ. Yeah, that's my apologies. Let's do the eliminator. We every week on this podcast, and again, we are the only podcast that talks football that eliminates a team every week from contention. We do that here. Everybody else is scared to do that. We're doing it. We eliminated last week the New York Giants in a bit of an upset, which now appears to be validated. Because, man, if you can't beat the Commander, like their kicking situation, Daboll looks like, I'm sorry, Brian Daboll, I'm just going to say this. You have not won enough to act like that in press conferences. Well, seriously, you haven't earned anything.
The kicking situation, right? The kicker got hurt.
But he's been hurt all week. I know he got really badly hurt during the game, so it was a more aggravated injury. But, like, he was ginger all week. How do you not have a kicker ready?
They're the first NFL team to score 3 touchdowns, give up 0 touchdowns, and lose the game.
That's an incredible
stat.
That is an incredible stat. Oh, my God.
How bad do you have to be to lose the game after you get in the eliminator? Because historically,
that's true.
Bet eliminator teams are above 500 the week.
That is usually the kiss of death for us. If we give them the eliminator, they come out and get hot like pretty fast after that. Usually always happens. All right. Nominations for the eliminator. Once again, I think it's safe to nominate the Carolina Panthers. Safe to nominate the Carolina Panthers. Now, Andy Dalton coming in, we might have to rethink this for a minute, but 0-2, not going anywhere. Probably the worst team in the league. Okay to put him on the block, but let me hear some other nominations.
Zach, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I'll nominate the Denver Broncos.
Makes good sense. AFC team.
I think, well, we've talked about before how we kind of like the balance. We don't like to get too far over our skis in one conference. So this brings us to an AFC team. Their division is good, right? Like the Chiefs are going to be really good. The Chargers are 2-0. The Raiders won a game that, maybe some people didn't see coming. And of all those 0-2 teams in the AFC, they are probably the least that I trust. So I'll say the Denver Broncos is a nomination.
And there's no like veteran QB waiting in the wings either. Like it's Bo Nix. Like that's who's out there.
And that's
okay. And that's okay too. You're right.
Yeah.
So that's fine. But there's no guy on a white horse coming in who's going to be like, oh, we can get him in here and he can help maybe stabilize us or get us better. It's the Bo Nix show. That's who's playing every game the rest of the year. Ryan, do you have a nomination? First of all, your Raiders nomination, you need to apologize for that.
I won't. I still think they're a bad football team. Anyway, you know this, Tim. I don't apologize for takes. That's not something that we do around here on my end. I'll stand by every take I make. Thank you.
Fair enough.
My nomination is the Tennessee Titans. I feel like every other team on this list at least has redeeming qualities. The Rams could get healthy. A miracle could befall the Indianapolis Colts. The Jacksonville Jaguars at least have some talent. The Cincinnati Bengals are arguably one of the more talented teams in the league. They just got to put it together. I mean, Baltimore's Baltimore. They're well coached. There's stuff here that could get better for every one of these teams. You want to talk about the cavalry ain't coming. Will Levis is straight up bad at football.
Is Will Levis king games?
That's what I'm waiting for, a mob report. Like, I am seriously waiting for outside the lines to be like, Will Levis like the mob had Will Levis's family hostage is what we're going to find out.
I saw a Twitter avatar of Will Levis diving toward Tajay Spears, tossing him the football midair. And I have to tell you, there's a high school player who plays quarterback for our football team who I would expect that kind of play out of him. I don't expect it out of an NFL quarterback. I don't think he's requisite of an NFL quarterback. I think that the Tennessee Titans.
The Josh Darnold fumble this week too. Where the pulling guard bangs into him and he just like throws it backwards at the running back.
Yeah. You can't. What are we doing here?
That was it's like.
It was. We're going to call that Levite. As every time there's something like that.
We need a new stat for the power rankings of wins above Will Levis. Like, we need to get like some kind of sabermetrics on this. Like, because you could argue they could be 2-0 if not for Will Levis. Like that we got to really start to argue what we could really think about their team. Titans could be 2-0 pretty easy.
Yeah, but they're not. But those were against the Bears, who I think we'd agree are not a good football team, and a Jets team that is deeply flawed. They have Green Bay this week, and we'll get a pretty good look at how they can handle a defense that's playing up to par. They get the Dolphins and then a bye week. So by the time we get to week 5, we're going to have a pretty good sample size of just how bad the Titans are. But I'm telling you, the cavalry ain't coming. They're going to lose a bunch of games.
I'm a big wins. I think we're going to keep that stat. I think that sabermetric's going to be here. Wins above Will Levis. I think we're going to do it.
Is that one step above wins above Bryce Young?
That could, jeez. Because there's no wins. Like, there's not even if without Bryce Young, they don't win. So who do we eliminate then, guys? So we've got the nominations of the Titans, the Broncos, and the Panthers. I threw out the Panthers because I think we're obliged to do it every week. I think until we actually eliminate them, we're obliged to nominate them every week. But my brain was leaning Denver all night and this morning, because of the AFC balance, but I was also leaning it because Carolina might win a game or two with Andy Dalton. I'm not sure that the Broncos can win 5 games with Bo Nix as the quarterback this year. Like, I don't think they can. And not in that division. They're not beating, and the Chargers are doing it with smoke and mirrors, but they're not beating the Chargers. They're not beating the Chiefs. They're not beating the Raiders twice. They're going to go 1-5 in the division at best. Carolina might at least beat the freaking Falcons.
Yeah, I would be okay with the Broncos, but I have to stick with my call here of the Titans. But I would understand if we were getting
off the radar for you.
What's that?
Let's go with the Broncos.
So we get to keep the Panthers another week as our free-floating life raft? I swear to God, it's like a get-out-of-jail-free card. It's like having a free get-out-of-jail. We're going to be sitting there in week 8 going, Carolina, we got to keep around.
0-8,
they're 0-8, but Andy Dalton.
But you know what? The Raiders have lost 6 straight.
They're going back to Bryce Young. Anything can happen. Dave Canales, quarterback whisperer. I mean, it's going to happen.
Is Dave Canales potentially one and done?
No, it's not his fault. I mean, look what he's inheriting here. It's not his fault.
For the record, Ryan, I think the Raiders, like, their schedule, looking at it, they're not going to lose 6. I mean, they play the Panthers next.
No, I know. I was just throwing a team out there.
They've got the Panthers and the Broncos coming up. So
I don't hate the Raiders. I just think the Raiders are a bad football team.
Will you apologize when they're 4-1?
I will not apologize.
No, come on. Now you're not being fair if you're not willing to apologize for that. Like, if
I'm
you get it
not
wrong.
willing to apologize. I'm not willing to apologize.
Fair enough. All right. Denver, you're eliminated. Welcome to the eliminator. Denver Broncos. Carolina gets another stay of execution here on the podcast. I'm telling you, we're going to love the fact that we've got Carolina in our pocket here. Now, it could be next week. Again, I don't think we have any risk. We can eliminate them anytime we want. They're terrible. But I think we're sending a
Patriots to
message.
lose a couple games here.
We need to send a message that Carolina, it might be this week for Carolina, because I don't know if anybody else is ready to be eliminated yet. We'll see. All right.
I really think that we're going to be talking about the Jags and the Rams next week in addition to Carolina.
You might be right. Let's do the power rankings quickly. Let's go through. I expect these rankings to change big time from last week because a lot of teams lost. Let's go number 5. Let's go around the horn. Ryan, 5.
Minnesota Vikings, number 5 team. That defense is legit. They're flying around the ball. The offense has some wrinkles still to work out, but they're very talented. They can strike from distance or they can grind you with a long drive. The running game looks so much better this year than it did last year. I'm Minnesota at 5.
Zach.
I am going with the Chiefs at 5.
Oh.
I think the way that they won this week and the way they've played, I've got to take them down a notch. They're at 5.
I've got the New Orleans Saints at 5. I'm going to buy the big victories. Carolina, okay, you throw that one out. You beat Dallas on the road that manner. You at least have my attention for 1 week. And so I'll tip my cap to you on that one. You have my attention. I'll give you the 5 spot. Credit for a nice road victory. They're my 5. I'll give you my 4. I'll go with Tampa Bay at 4. They're 2-0. Baker Mayfield looks good. Like, he's played well. And a road win at Detroit. Now, as I said to some other guys yesterday, 3 weeks from now, if Detroit stinks, is this a great win? Maybe in 3 weeks it's not. But right now, it is a great win. So I'll give them credit for a dominating win against Washington at home and a great road win against Detroit. So they're 4. Zach, who's 4?
I have the Vikings at 4. I'm going to give them credit, right? I mean, they're 2-0. They beat a bad Giants team, but they beat a 49ers team that a lot of people have as the NFC representative. I'm with Ryan, right? Division champs. Here we go.
I can't get that sounder here just for Zach. Rhino, who's your 4th?
My number 4 team is the Buffalo Bills. This still feels like a team that's still got a little bit of growing to do, but I like the way that they look. I think that you're still running into a couple of the injury bug problems on defense, especially at linebacker. But I like the Bills. I think that they're still getting better, so I'll put them at 4. Kind of like
Buffalo. Zach, let's go back around the horn for number 3.
I have the Saints at 3.
Do you want me to name mine? Oh, sorry.
No, I got no. Oh, it's right. You could have gone back for 3. I'm sorry, Ryan.
Let Zach go first.
Let Zach go first.
Saints
for 3.
Big win against, again, a Dallas team that we all had ranked last week. So,
yeah, you score 80 some points in 2 weeks. You have to at least give them some credit for that. No doubt about it. Rhino, who's your 3rd?
My number 3 team is the Kansas City Chiefs.
Okay.
For the similar, not quite as severely as Zach dropped them, but I will drop them because I just don't think they're playing great football right now.
And the injury with like Pacheco is certainly something to think about, right? We don't really know what the status is of that, but he may miss a couple weeks. We'll see how that looks. And they're finding ways to win. You're right, but yeah, it's
finding ways.
They're finding ways.
What way did they find this week, Tim?
Well, here's what I'll say. Like, the Bengals did it to themselves. First of all, we all know this in sports. Zach, you know this, being a guy who's been around baseball, softball your whole life. You're allowed to go chirp at the umpire, but there are magic words. There's a time where he says that's enough and you got to stop. And if you cross the line with saying certain words, you're going to be in trouble. And Chase decided, well, no, I'm saying every horrible, heinous thing I can think of at this referee, and he deserved to get penalized. Sorry. And that is pass interference, guys. I'm sorry. Pass interference. What happened at the end of the game?
Well,
Chiefs found a way to win.
Hold on here. I want to pull up some audio. You tell me if you can hear this on our end, okay?
Okay. I'll see what I can do. Sorry, K-fan. I'm waiting for that to come on right there, little KG.
Oh, it's the wrong play. Hold on.
Okay. All right.
There's the play before that.
I can't even hear it anyway, so you got to get that up on the mic.
So
you got to get on the mic or
I've,
something.
I've got the audio
Okay.
from Tim Anderson on the call complaining about a pass interference call
Are you?
at the end of a high school game.
I wasn't complaining about anything during that call. Are you crazy?
All I heard was that we need to let them play.
No, I said first of all, I complimented them the entire game on letting them play. If you play it all, I said, I'm really glad the refs let them play. I just don't understand why you would call that one and let the rest of them go. There were far more. I'm fine with not calling penalties, but you got to be consistent. I just thought that one was a little nickel and dime. I wasn't complaining, and it damn sure isn't why they lost.
Tim, that pass interference call in the Chiefs-Bengals game happens on every single Hail Mary.
That wasn't a Hail Mary, though. That was like a 15-yard pass.
It was a ball that was highly overthrown and scrambled at the last second of a game. It's a terrible call to decide a football game.
It's pass interference. You would want that call. If you were going against if you were on the offense, you would want that call, Zach.
I just want you to be consistent, Tim.
I am consistent. How dare you? I will fight you. All right, next up,
super bummed that the audio didn't work.
Oh, next up, my number 3, just real quick. I'll take the Houston Texans at 3. Not a great win. I mean, it was a good win, but they didn't dominate Chicago like I thought, but they're still 2-0, and I still like all the pieces. I like all the pieces for Houston. I'm buying. So I'm in on that. 2, I got Kansas City. I got to knock them down one notch. It hasn't been a great start. It's okay. Xavier Worthy isn't the player so far that they thought he would be. Rice has looked good. Kelsey's a non-factor. He's invisible. They need to figure out how to get him more involved in things, or maybe they're just waiting. That could be that they're just biding their time with him. I don't know, but it seems a little slow. They feel like they're kind of stuck in second gear right now. So I'm kind of waiting. Number 2 for you, Zach.
I have the Eagles at 2. My list was made, before tonight's game, and they're struggling a little bit tonight, but I still think that with what happened to the San Francisco 49ers, they seem to be the class of the NFC so far.
I can listen to that. Rhino, 2?
My number 2 is the New Orleans Saints. Again, great wins. Have to recognize it. I think about how sustainable this is, and you're just not going to get that game every week. Dallas has a tendency to drop one every once in a while. Was that Dallas being that bad and New Orleans being that good, or was it New Orleans is a above average team and Dallas had a bad game? Because they've done that before. So I want to wait and see a little bit on New Orleans, but they've certainly played great through 2 weeks, and give them credit by giving them the number 2 spot.
Why don't you give me your number 1 right after? New Orleans has made all 3 of our countdowns, but in very different spots. Who's your 1?
My number 1 team is the Houston Texans. I think that Nico Collins is blowing up.
He looks good.
Teams are not passing the ball like they used to. We're not expecting gigantic numbers out of quarterbacks. Joe Mixon looks fresh. He looks healthy, which is huge for them. Defensively, I think there's some stuff to clean up there, but you're still really young. This team's going to get better. They're going to be in the playoffs because they're going to win their division. It's just a matter of what seed they're going to get and how many home games they get. I think that this is a very, very good team.
Duly noted. Your number 1, Zach?
I have the Buffalo Bills at 1.
Same do I. So do I. Buffalo, number 1.
I moved them up in my rankings after handling a Miami team that I thought would be much better at home. So the Bills are my number 1 team this week.
And they did that with Allen kind of have that giant glove on his hand. He was kind of hurt, dinged up. But they did everything that they needed to do. They played good defense. They ran the ball. Cook looks really good as the running back. Like he looks like he's explosive and gives them what they need. Yeah, he does. Really does look like his brother. So Buffalo could be scary if they can run the ball. And if they can keep doing that, they're going to be really good. All right. There's your power rankings for this week. Now time for your favorite part of the show and mine. It's time for Dad Talk. Once again, I was told by a fan of the show, Caitlin, that Zach might have a great story for Dad Talk. I don't know if it could be better than last week's, but I got to let you have the floor again. Oh. Go ahead, Zach.
So, Caitlin dropped the little guy off at preschool this week to start, right? First day was Tuesday. Second day was Thursday. And then forgot to pick him up Thursday. So I'm teaching in class and the phone rings and I just hit mute and my phone rings again in my pocket and I'm like, what the heck? And I pull it out and I see that it's a 506 number, right? So that means it's the school district.
Yep.
And I'm thinking, Gehrig must be sick or something. And like, nope. Huck's still waiting for a ride at preschool. So Caitlin just got tied up at work and all of a sudden was like, oh, I'm late. So apparently he came strolling out though with a extra graham cracker and was really happy to be there. And then when he woke up in the middle of the night and came in our room, it was like 11:30 at night. He told Caitlin, Mom, that was so cool that I got to stay late at school.
Totally could sell that as a great parenting move. Well done.
She feels and felt so guilty. And I'm like, I'm laughing.
Now I was told that under no circumstances was I to bring this up. So it's nice to hear that Zach broke the ice on this.
Well, she kind of hinted at it earlier, and I don't know, I might be getting in trouble tomorrow when she listens to this. So
she's the one who said, when I asked her, because she was showing a video online yesterday of, was it Huck that was kind of messing with her hair and yanking the hair around? And I'm like, you can come on Dad Talk and share this story with us. And she's like, nah, Zach's got a better one. So I was like, all right, I guess I got to let him go. So
hey, we don't usually break news on this podcast. But 28 minutes ago, Sean Diddy Combs was taken into federal custody, according to NBC.
Wow. When was the last time you listened to a P. Diddy song?
He was arrested by the Department of Homeland Security.
That's tough. You don't want to get arrested by those guys. That's not good.
That ain't the FBI, guys. That's they do other stuff.
I don't even know where their home office is. He could be in an undisclosed jail that we'll never know. He'll never get out of it.
We're pretty sure he killed Diddy or he killed Biggie, right? I mean,
I feel like that evidence is coming around here, isn't it?
He did not. He was a nobody until that happened. He was standing in the background with Mace, just going,
Yeah. He was the guy that Suge Knight picked on at the Source Awards by saying, if you want to have your producer not in your videos, come to Death Row. That's the end of Diddy. Your favorite Diddy moment.
Anyway, back to Dad Talk.
Talk. Go ahead, Ryan. Can you beat that?
I don't try to beat it. I just do my own thing, but that's largely because my son is just a general terror. We've had to move the monitor camera in his bedroom away from his crib or his bed now. It's not a crib anymore, but away from where he sleeps because he's learned how to get past the baby proofing and tear it off the wall.
Did I not hear you say last night or Lauren say the other night that he was pulling the batteries out of things? Like he has figured out how to unhook things and that's unbelievable.
Security system.
He's learning, Lois.
This kid is a fucking genius and it's terrifying because he also doesn't like to sleep. So instead of, I don't know, taking naps and listening to mom and dad, he's defiant and not doing anything when we talk to him. And as soon as we leave the room, he's getting out of bed and tearing everything off of the wall, throwing his noise machine on the floor. The camera gets disconnected and I walk up there and he quickly puts it back together and hands it to me as though he's found it.
He's cutting the wires for the security system like some spy in a Tom Cruise movie, just out there cutting the wires. It's so impressive.
I mean, really, man, seriously, this kid's like, get smart. He's just got gadgets in his diaper. Like, I don't understand where these are coming from. Like he produced a 9mm and the keys to an Aston Martin the other day. I don't know where the car is, but as soon as I find it, we're going to be okay.
We went to get a suit or a sport coat or a jacket, whatever. We were flexible, but Carter's looking for one for the homecoming dance. And so we're on the way there and I was kind of asking him, like, hey, like, are you going with anyone? And he's like, just my friends, cause I'm thinking like, does he need to coordinate or match or,
Yeah.
And so we get there, and first of all, the guy working was probably younger than Carter. Right? It's like this like 14-year-old guy, and he's in his little suit and whatnot. And so he asked Carter, he's like, "So are you going with a girl?" And Carter says, "Well, I'm trying to." And I'm like, "Well, wait, what?" I'm like, this is a different answer than what I got, and it's 8 days, 9 days till homecoming.
Zach's like, I have to have the same information as everybody else. This is not fair.
Right.
This is ridiculous.
So I'm like, Carter, like what, I'm like, I'm not prying. I'm not trying to pry into your social life. Like, I'm trying to help you and make sure you have the things that you need. Right. And so then he's like, well, I'm meeting a girl there. And I'm like, okay. And I'm like,
she's flying in from Canada, Dad. You don't know her. You wouldn't know anything about her.
So I'm like, I have to
She doesn't go here.
Like, I have to ask now, does she know that you're meeting her there? Like, is she aware that this is like, a plot?
It's a plot.
And he's like, yes. So, he's like, we're meeting there. We're going with our friends, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, oh. But I'm like, this is why we're having the conversation of like, what are you wearing? Like,
because she's not super aware of it, but we've got traps laid all around the dance.
So
gonna bop her over the head and bring her back to the cave.
So that was our night. The other night we went and picked out. He got his jacket. It's being sized up for him. He can pick it up tomorrow, I believe. So.
He go with like a neutral color? Or is he trying to stick out?
He went burgundy.
Ooh, okay.
So he actually went there with like a burgundy tie, and the tie may not go exactly well with the jacket, but he's got a different plan for it. So, but yeah, he was kind of.
Well, that's a bold plan, Cotton. We'll see how that plays out.
I'm rooting for Carter, man. That kid's such a good kid. Some gal be lucky to go dance with that dude. Be lucky to get a little Rick Astley song on the dance floor and get get after it a little bit. They'd be lucky. Yeah. That girl be lucky to dance with that kid.
Well, it sounds like it's an official plan. So
good. I hope
Tim's speaking like a guy who doesn't have to chaperone that dance.
Don't have to chaperone that.
That is true.
When I have to chaperone homecoming, I stay way, way, way away from the music and just make sure nobody's making out in the back, Jim. Man, that's my only job.
I have some off-air stories about homecoming dances for you.
Yeah, we could do a whole segment on that because I did homecoming a year at Anoka.
I did the Halloween dance at Anoka, and I've never needed a shower like instantaneously after watching a dance. Then the kind of filth that I saw executed that night, was
there more or less drugs and alcohol at that event than there was at the tent party in downtown Anoka?
There was probably less, but I would argue the amount of slutty Barbies and slutty nurses and slutty firefighters and slutty everything was probably through the roof ahead of the Anoka.
Are we going to wrestling in Anoka again for Halloween this year?
Yeah, we got to talk. We got to talk about that. Yeah, because we got to go see if we're going to go do that.
Yeah, I think. I mean, it should work out. I know I'm going up to.
Would you be up to watching Michael Myers win another wrestling match against some random jobber? That's what
I'm going up to see Brooke for Parents Weekend, but I think it's the weekend before that, so it shouldn't be an issue. But she's looking forward to that too, I think. And, in the middle of all the rush week activities and then homecoming week, and it's quite the process up there. And I don't always understand it.
Feels like a lot.
Well, I mean, like it's great. She's found people to hang out with, things that she's excited about, which is perfect. 100%. But there are sometimes where she'll talk to me about, what's going on with her sorority. And I have no clue because my frame of reference is Animal House and Old School.
And Revenge of the Nerds. Whatever you saw in Revenge of the Nerds.
Maybe a little Van Wilder.
Yeah. I have no experience with that at all. By
the way, she has not seen any of those movies.
What?
Right. That's what I'm like.
Neither have I.
Whoa, hang on, Ryan. You've never. So let me run this back. You haven't seen Animal House, Revenge of the Nerds, Van Wilder, or Old School?
Or 0 for 4.
Well, I know what the next 4 movies on the movie.
Yeah, I got to call Lauren tonight and say, Lauren, we got to rewrite the whole thing. We got to run 4 straight. We got to go Animal House. We got to go Van Wilder. We got to go Revenge of the Nerds. Although I think Revenge of the Nerds has been canceled, but I don't give a fuck. We're gonna watch Revenge of the Nerds.
Holy cow!
Yeah, you're also a guy that you watch Woody Allen movies too.
I do like Woody Allen movies. They're funny. I'm not trying to endorse his personal life. I'm just saying the movies are funny.
I am shocked you have not seen Old School.
Ryan, you haven't seen Old School?
I have not. Sorry, I'm out here fishing for reactions from
Yeah,
Tim.
you're a son of a. You are
on the Woody Allen.
I swear to God, if I could come through this computer right now and just punch you right in the throat, I would do it.
Pause.
What? I said in the yeah. I'll be back in a second. Pause. All right. Good, Dad. Anything else for Dad Talk tonight? This was great, guys.
This was a marathon session.
This really was. We did an hour 24 here tonight. So I want to thank everybody for listening and hanging out with us. And once again, if you want to go listen to anything we've talked about, go look in the archive under timpodcast.podbean.com. Once again, facebook.com/timpodcast. Anywhere you get your podcast, like, subscribe, leave a comment, tell a friend. We'd appreciate it. Until next time, for Zach, for Ryan, this is Tim saying keep your head up, and we'll see. There's my intro.